with none other than Dr. Jacqui Lewis, the author of Fierce Love, A Bold Path to Ferocious Courage and Healing Kindness. And we are grateful that we have this opportunity. Now, as you all are streaming in, I want you to know that you can take a look at book notes, some of the previous conversations we've had with Lisa Sharon Harper, with Shaka Sanghor, and also with Dr. Earl Fisher. We're so excited that these book notes have been expanding. Every time we do one, the audience grows, the live audience, and then those who are viewing afterwards. So there's several things that we ask that you would do today. One, that you'd be willing to share the book notes once it is uploaded to YouTube, that you may want to share with someone in your family, your community, or maybe you're part of a book club. And we're so very grateful for some of the book clubs that have joined us. If you're part of a book club, make sure you give a shout out in the chat. I will get that information and they'll pass it on to me so that we can shout out your book club during the book notes. The second thing is that we are in a partnership with Afterware Books. 2 locations in the Chicagoland area, one being at Trinity United Church of Christ. Afterware is owned by a sister. It is a Black-owned, sister-owned business that manages the bookstore at Trinity United Church of Christ and has a location in Oak Park, Illinois. We're inviting you to purchase your books through Afterware. Now, I know many people like to purchase through Amazon, but Jeff Bezos has enough money already. Let's go ahead and support a sister. So Afterware Books is our partner with our book notes. So we would kindly ask that you would support this local bookstore run by a sister. And if Sister Nzinga is watching, we are so delighted that we have a partnership with you. And again, the book notes, we've decided to continue. Based on our series that we announced last year, this was going to be our last conversation. But the response has been overwhelming. And when I mean overwhelming, I'm talking overwhelming. I had no idea so many people wanted to have conversations about books, Black books, books about our culture, our history, our spirituality. And so we're going to continue the conversation of what is known as book notes. And we hope that you will join us. We'll be uploading these not only to YouTube, but they soon will be a podcast that you will be able to just listen to the conversations. When you're working out, when you're in the car, whatever you may be doing, you'll have the opportunity to be able to listen in and share the book notes as a podcast. So I want to thank all those who have been a part of this. I want to thank our producer behind the scenes, none other than Madam Cleo. I call her the wonderful wizard who is always providing things behind the scenes. Our digital pastor, none other than Reverend Digi, Reverend Rolana. I said Reverend, no, Rolana. Rolana, I guess I'm being prophetic. You're not a Reverend. But our graphic designer, we are so appreciative of you, Rolana, for making sure that our graphics are laid out. And of course, the one who is bringing all those things together, coordinating everything logistically, is none other than Donna Hammond of the Hammonds, who are on the south side of Chicago. And so we're so appreciative of everybody who is a part of the book notes. And today, we have none other than Dr. Jacqui Lewis. Dr. Lewis is a native of Chicago and also a PhD in the area of psychology and organizational management, a graduate of Princeton, and also attended a school not too far from us known as Northwestern. She's an incredible leader who currently is the first African-American woman to pastor, to lead the Middle Collegiate Church in New York City, one of the oldest churches in New York. Her leadership has brought together an amazing conglomerate, what I call a gumbo congregation of people from different backgrounds and perspectives, orientations, and she brings these people together, and every Sunday they cook something beautiful theologically. She's my big sister, she's my friend, and she's written this incredible book entitled Fierce Love, A Bold Path to Ferocious Courage and Rule-Breaking Kindness that Can Heal the World. You can pick it up Afterware Books, we want you to support a sister. Afterware Books, pick up a copy of Fierce Love. It is a wonderful combination of spiritual memoir, laying out a theological narrative of how we live in the world today. And I want to welcome to our book notes none other than Dr. Jacqui Lewis, who is the Monsignor Bishop and Apostle of New York City and Middle Church. Jacqui, we thank you so much for being with us today.
You just start off frisky, don't you, Bishop?
Well,
hi, everyone.
I'm doing wonderful. It's great to have you with us. Thank you for doing this, and thank you for writing this book. As I read it, when you were in the editorial phase, I knew that it was going to have a great impact, and you put so much of yourself in this book because it's part memoir. You break down 9 theological, spiritual principles to live in this world. If you would share with our audience, what's the genesis of this particular publication?
I will, after I just thank you again for having me. And guys, let me just tell you, Otis and I go way back to when we were children. I'm kidding. We go way back. I just feel like when we're together, there's going to always be something beautiful, sparking, brilliant conversation, and deep reasoning, and also great laughter. So thank you so much, Otis, for our friendship. So let me just sort of pick up on the bio that you said. I'm the first Black and female person to serve the collegiate church, not just middle, 1628. And I only want to say that to say that took a daggone long time to break a ceiling, like right. 1628, and then me, 20 years ago. So this is kind of the nature of where the book comes from, Otis. I grew up in the Air Force Base. My mom and dad were there, so therefore I was too. And, in that situation, Blacks, whites, Asians, Latinos, indigenous people make family wherever you land. You kind of have to make family wherever you land. My mom and dad were the cool house where all the people came to play bid whist or bridge, and they drank Kool-Aid or rum, and they played cards and they danced, but it was like the cool house. And so in a way, my mom and dad were these Black, born in Mississippi, Jim Crow, migrated north, grew up in the Depression, broke Black people who left and met each other in Nebraska and made me, and created a new life. And even though they had every reason to feel, disenfranchised and dissed, and angry and, salty about their lives, they cooked these community gatherings. Theirs was the house of ubuntu, like whoever you are, come through here and we're going to eat and we're going to dance and we're going to play and we're going to enjoy. And there was something about that was a laboratory for me, a kind of maybe only Black child in a classroom, but with these Black parents that were both Blackity Black, you and I might say, Black history teaching, Black church, but also gumbo people, right? They also had these multi-ethnic relationships. And what did I learn from my parents? They were teaching us, Otis, that we were not to interject American racism and whiteness. They were teaching us that we were their children, that therefore we could do anything we wanted. They didn't want us to be the hate that we had seen on television, experienced in the world. They wanted us to be revolutionary in our love. And when Dr. King was killed, I felt that was my calling, Sapir, to kind of end a world in which a good Black man could be killed just for being a good Black man. This is a sense of calling in my body. So the book comes from X numbers of years, I'm older than you, of looking across a nation, a world broken around race, class, division, and saying, what is it going to get us better? What's going to make us well? It's love. It's fierce love that's going to make us well. And that's what I'm trying to do, honey, is to write a better world.
Now, in your book, and I love the way that you begin in your introduction, and you mentioned it here, You talked about Ubuntu. You talked
Mm-hmm.
about how the Zulu people greet you. For those who may not be familiar, I know people from Trinity will be familiar, and people from Middle will be familiar, but we have some other people who are tuning in.
Right.
Break down Ubuntu. What is that? And because you weave it throughout your entire book.
It's such a good thing. It's such a juicy concept. And for you, my brother, I learned how to say it, right? It's it's Ubuntu, Ngubuntu, Ngabantu.
Mhm.
A human is a human through other humans. This philosophy is as old as time, since we who are all the humans are created in the cradle of civilization, if you will, in South Africa. This philosophy comes from there. So I like to think when we were walking out of the cave into the light, we looked around and we were, how are we going to do this? How are we going to survive together? We bet you chop the wood, you watch the kids, you hunt and gather, you cook, you make a government. A person is a person through other people. I am who I am because of who you are. I'm inextricably connected to you. If you're hungry, my stomach should growl. If your parents can't pay their bills unless they skip meds, we need to together go to the policy table. If children are thirsty still in Detroit, Flint, because we can't fix the water, we need to be thirsty as well. It is one human family surviving and thriving together. That's what Ubuntu is. And I think it's the foundation for all of the major world religions as well, Otis, right? Like, love your neighbor as you love yourself. Do this thing together. Do unto others as you want unto you. That's what Ubuntu is.
Now, what's so powerful and also brilliant what you do in the book. So you have this introduction. You're talking about Ubuntu, and then you lift up one of my favorite poets, Rudy Francesco, and then you lift up Lucille Ball to begin your first chapter talking about
self-love. Yeah.
Why do we need self-love? And share with us. There's a few wonderful stories. The one in kindergarten
Oh my goodness.
is quite powerful.
Yeah.
But why do we need self-love?
Because we can't, Otis, really love anyone else until we love ourselves. I mean, I think we can be romantic. I think we can have sexual relations. I think we can have crushes. But I think the kind of love that is really transformational, the kind of love that will really heal us, actually is formed because a little one learns to love themselves, learns to love the good, the bad, the ugly, the broken, the well, the shiny, the sparkly, the dangerous, the yucky parts of themselves. And in a practice of learning to love ourselves, then we can love the same kind of thing in the other. Love the other's faults, love the other's disappointments, love the other's brokenness. Our Rabbi Jesus, love neighbor as self. In the Greek, it's an equal sign. The word os connects that phrase, love your neighbor as yourself. And I don't know why, Otis, but it doesn't seem like we get taught that part of the formula, if you will, growing up. There, especially as female children, I think we're taught to give it away and sacrifice and, put yourself last. Even Gail Sayers, right? That my God is first, my friends are second, and I am third. Like, how? So my theory is much of humankind is actually loving the world the way they love themselves, which is poorly.
Wow.
Which is right. Like, so you got a whole bunch of people who don't love themselves, making laws, making policies, running for office, banning books, keeping people, taking kids out folks' arms at the border. If you don't love yourself, you're stingy, you're fragile, you're grabby, you don't have a wide open heart. So I start with love yourself, admitting that America is not a good container in which Black people have flourish well or learn to love ourselves well. But can we fix that? Can we create antidotes to that? Can we create containers, Otis, like your church and mine, where we just affirm the unique particularity of everyone, all the people, so that they can take in self-love and then love the world instead?
And I have to say, for those who are listening who have not been to Middle Church, you have to visit. We have students who serve, who are studying in New York. They come by Middle Church, and it's an amazing collection of unique people. It's a very jazz collection because everybody else says, no, you're not supposed to play together, but they do at Middle Church.
Yes,
Everybody
I
does,
do.
and has a, just to give a little bit for those who may not be familiar with Middle Church, because it's one of the oldest churches in New York,
Yeah,
incredibly historic,
right.
but yet you all are right in the nexus and the heart of making change in New York.
We really are, Otis. And I was so lucky to inherit a church that had almost died, actually. My predecessor, Gordon Drott, the church had dwindled down to 21, he always said, old Polish ladies. So
Mm,
in the Ukrainian village in New York, right, the East Village, God
mm,
bless our Ukrainian siblings, literally 21 Polish and Ukrainian women, period. And in a big old Gothic church. And Gordon opened the doors to this guy named Jerice Johnson, who was a singer, gospel choir, started with Jerice Johnson and the Pips, like Jerice and three white ladies, black man, three white ladies, singing the gospel music. And the door opened to artists, and the door opened to the people who were living with and dying from HIV/AIDS in the 80s. And he opened the door to poor people. And when you open the door, Otis, people come, people
mm,
come. And my tenure at Middle has been more extrovertedly Black Lives Matter. But at the same time, the world called us to this, right? Like 10 years ago, Trayvon and Mike Brown and Sandy Bland. And one day we were like, we're in Chinatown. And as soon as we said, y'all come to the Chinese, I mean, the gospel choir, you've seen it.
yeah.
My gospel choir is like the United Nations, right? Black folks and Latinx folks and Asian folks and um, and indigenous folks, Hispanic folks, singing the gospel music and singing also stuff from Broadway. It is a place where people go by the Chinese church in Queens to come to Middle. They
Mm,
go by, they might pick not Abyssinian, which we love, but to come downtown to Middle for the experiment that we're doing, Love, right? Where this Black led by a nappy-haired woman community, where the white allies are
mm,
up in there studying anti-racism, right? And really working on reparations, working on Indigenous and African American reparations together, all of us, voting rights together, all of us, dying in, wearing our hoodies, working on legislation together to make America not racist, maybe for the first time. I'm so in awe of that community, and it's weird
mm.
and it's unusual, but we're working on it.
Now, I think that goes to the heart of not only your ministry,
Mhm.
but also your book,
Yeah.
because you give so many powerful stories. You say that stories can change people,
Yeah.
and the right story will change someone. And you talk about in the first section of your book, same love, self-love, um, this idea that we are all struggling with this idea of love. And it seems from reading your book and witnessing your leadership that your experiences growing up prepared you to lead at Middle Church. And you have
Mhm.
some wonderful stories of vulnerability, but your mother and your father, if you could share, I love the story when you were in kindergarten and
Yes.
there's this little boy who has a crush on you, and then this girl is a little bit jealous.
Oh, yes.
What happens? I don't want to. Please share that, and
I
then
will tell
how
that
your
story.
mother and father respond is quite powerful.
Thank you, Otis, for that. Yeah. So interesting. I think you might be the first person that said out loud that she was jealous. That's exactly what it was. So here
Okay.
I am, little black chocolatey me, happy, well-adjusted little kindergarten classroom, only black chick, and my two Tommies, red-haired Tommy, blonde-haired Tommy, white Tommies, and Jacqui, just having a happy life till Lisa comes, right? Lisa moves from Mississippi and is outraged that they are my friends. Absolutely, beautiful blonde Tommy was the object of affection. So she stage whispers to him,
Mm.
why are you sitting next to that nasty N-word?
Mm.
And don't you know that she gets chocolate milk from her mother's tits?
Mm.
What? Now, my parents are Black parents, but I've never heard the N-word in our house ever. They have put a cocoon around us in some kind of way, but I just couldn't believe it. And even though I didn't fully understand exactly what she was trying to communicate, I knew that it was mean, and I knew it was nasty, and I knew it was designed to hurt me, and it did. So my parents were these people who are till my mom's death, and now our dining room table was always the place of like school, Bible class, history. You know, like we're gonna talk some stuff out. And I did at the dinner table, just me and my little sister now at that moment. Today, this little girl called me the N-word. And they were like, what? And they had these two reactions, Otis, that really shaped my personality. My mother said, Jack, she called me Jack, it's silly. She said, it's silly that someone would think you're not as good as they are because you're a Negro. I was a Negro back then, Otis. I'm dating myself. But she said, it's silly. I said, silly. And, you know, we weren't allowed to say stupid, so she didn't say stupid. It's silly. Doesn't she know that you're a Lewis and you're a child of God and you can do anything you want to do and be anything you want to be if you try? That was mommy.
Mm-hmm.
And then that night when we were doing our by the bed prayers, we prayed our now lay me down to sleep. But then I prayed back what I heard her saying. Mommy said, it's silly. So I said, God, make it be so that no matter what color people are, they will know they're loved. Otis, that was a 5-year-old prayer, right? And I think I've been working on that my whole life. Like, how can I make that happen? Now, my dad is fiery. So he went to the base commander and said, there will be an apology from her father to my dad, and from her to me.
Let's see, what year is this? Because I want everybody to understand.
1960 damn 3.
1963. Your dad went to the base commander.
My Black Mississippi-born daddy.
Now he's from Meridian, Mississippi.
From
correct?
Meridian, right? Yes. And went to the base commander while the Freedom Riders were in Meridian doing that stuff, doing that good thing. My dad was having his own freedom experience in Omaha, Nebraska, and demanded from the base commander an apology from Lisa's dad and her to me, and got it. And so, wow, you know, this little girl now is apologizing me in the classroom, and she's forced to invite me to her birthday party. Then I'm forced to go. But my dad and mom together showed me this kind of spiritual power and activism power. Yeah.
Wow. Powers to me when I first read it, I marked your mom, I marked your dad, and it was the theology deposited by your mom.
Yeah.
And then the praxis deposited by your father.
My father.
Both of them, same theological narrative.
Right.
You're a Lewis.
You're a Lewis. The gospel.
Yes, God. Mom says, make sure that you have this on your heart. And dad is like, well, let me demonstrate how we gonna change. That was really powerful. 1963.
1963.
You know, to have a Black man to do that, and that kind of emphasis and example. And what you do in the book, which I love, is you share the complexities of your relationships, and one being the relationship with your father.
Absolutely.
And I really do appreciate the way that you frame your dad.
Oh my God. Right.
And I know that was a challenge, as you shared with us. For those who may not know, Jacqui and I are part of the Auburn Fellows program, and it's a whole bunch. It's a tribe of us who are ministers and faith leaders and activists and writers and all of that from connected with Auburn Seminary. And Jacqui shared some of the challenges that I'm really worried about sharing the complexity of my father.
Yeah, and Otis is being so nice about it. I was shaking in my boots. The book was coming out, and I was in November, and I was in Chicago at Otis's church, really, literally terrified. I, who am a grown woman, was terrified that my dad would read this book and not understand why I told truth. And I will say a little bit more, and then I want to tell this happy ending piece, right? Like, honestly, Otis, friends listening, the bosom, the womb that was my parents' house. Like, everything that I am is honed in the context of their fierce love. Like, we will do everything we need to do for you to be okay. We will skip buying coats so you can have piano lessons and trumpet lessons and ballet lessons. We will save the money to send you to camp. I remember when I was a junior in high school, there's 6 of us, right? So I'm a junior in high school, and I'm going to go with my band to Florida. And there, like, my daddy was making like $42,000 a year or something. Otis. It's crazy town. I only know that because I did my financial aid forms that year. And Mom took me to Walmart or Kmart, one of the marts, and bought me clothes for 7 days in an Emma Lewis way. She was beautiful and great eye for shopping and loved clothes. Takes me shopping, and we spent like basically on zero money. This blue overall set goes with the peach top, that goes with those peach jeans, goes with that kerchief. I mean, the sacrifice to make sure that I would feel a part of the group, the way that they insisted on college. And like, these were some beautiful, powerful, strong, raised by single mother Black people who just pushed themselves and us into the world with so much fierce love. And they were complicated characters. My dad, most especially, a kind of wounded boy, a boy whose father left and stepfather was mean, a kind of fragile boy in a way, who built up a callus around himself. So, like, I'm a bear, like I'm mad. But no, he's the most sensitive, sweet, pick out your greeting card, write you the most beautiful note, drive you anywhere dad, who also had a temper. And his incredible love, incredible generosity was my first, really interjecting. My dad was a dad of love and patience and joy. But then you become a teenager, and you're testing your waters, and your dad's not having testing. Y'all know how that goes. And it was bumpy. So over my time with my father, I have become a fearless human being because my dad let me practice telling him the truth. Do you know what I mean? Like, he let me find my voice. He ultimately is why I found my activism voice, and ultimately read this book and called me crying. He's so proud of this book and the stories that I told. He says, I know you told them so other people could get well too. And I'm so proud of you. I'm like, oh, who are you? So it is a laboratory of truth telling and laughter and dancing and church and loudness and sometimes some cuss words, and always making up, I love you too, laboratory that I grew up in that proof texts what I'm saying about fierce love. It's not a theory, it's practice. We never give up on each other. We never let each other go. We're always trying to find a way out of no way to be a family. And my dad, who hated white people at a moment because of the scars he endured, loves the hell out of my white husband, John, and his Filipino daughter-in-law, Didi, and, his other white son. Like, we are a United Nations family, and he loves us all deeply. So I'm telling you, I'm a witness that fierce love can heal us and change us.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And I hope people don't miss when they have the opportunity to read the book. Oh, I got to do a commercial. You can pick up a copy of Fierce Love from Afroware Books. It is on the South Side and also in Oak Park. It is owned by a Black woman. We want you to support Afroware Books. Hey, you can go to Amazon. Jeff Bezos has enough money. Go ahead and support something in your community and order Fierce Love. We also have a very special coupon so that you will receive a discount if you purchase the book from Afroware. So we would encourage you, that will come up at some point on the screen, I believe. Oh, they've got it on there. Book Notes Fierce. Yes, use the coupon code Book Notes Fierce, and you will receive a discount for purchasing Fierce Love from Afroware Books. All right, commercial over. Now, let me ask you a question in reference to that, because again, the way in which you do something that a lot of writers are not able or capable of doing in writing complexity. You talk about the fact that liberation comes from losing everything. Tell us
goodness.
why liberation comes from losing everything.
Can you go with me on a book tour? Can we do this everywhere? This is a great conversation. I lost it, love. That's why. Fire is a very important character in the book. When I was, 22-ish, 24-ish, I guess, I had this car accident that almost killed me, but didn't. And in some ways, that was a certain kind of fire, like a certain kind of fire that actually ended up consuming that relationship. Like, we just couldn't make it through the trauma of that. But I had a literal fire on my moving van when I was moving from California to the East Coast for Eastman Kodak Company. And my moving van drove under some power lines, and everything on the truck burned up. Everything on the truck burned up, except for my Wurlitzer upright piano, black lacquer piano. Everything else was gone, like melted, just gone, vaporized. And I filed an insurance claim, and Kodak is very generous. And I just remember doing the claim, and then, like, it's time to go shopping to replace your coat and get your boots and get your shoes and get your car and all kind of stuff. And I was like, I just don't know if I need all of these things. Now, I like a nice coat. I do. But it really changed the way I felt about things, because I was alive and the things were gone, And my attachment to things began to shift, which has been an ongoing process. What do I really need to be okay? Is not the things. It's the people. It's the relationships. And so over time, I know I'm more inclined to travel than buy something. Like, that relationship, that experience, that memory is the kind of valuable, I would say, I curate. But then, Otis, our church burned down. To the ground. December of 2020, a 6-alarm fire took my building down. And the manuscript of this book was due just around the same time. My publisher said, like, let's take a couple months. And I just began to think about the things I was finding in the fire, taking at least that time to write. Like, I found community love across the globe. They were talking about this fire in China, in Beijing, China. I don't even know why. Maybe the Liberty Bell, I don't know. But people were writing to us from China, from Australia, from London, from Paris, from Canada, and from all over the country, saying, they knew a little bit of Middle Church, and it was like the cathedral, their cathedral had burned down. Like the cathedral. I was like, who are you people? Who are you? And people you and I know, like Abby Disney and, Mark Ruffalo and like all kinds of people that don't really know me were sending love notes. People were raising money for us that don't know us. It was unbelievable to me. And it was so painful. Like, it's still so painful. The fire keeps burning because you don't have a home and you got to figure out what you're going to do and financial issues, But I have never felt freer in my life to be truthful, to never mince words. My Spanish friends have an idiom like, no, don't have a hair in your mouth. Like, I got no hair on my mouth. No tengo pelo en la boca. No, I just cannot. When your stuff burns down and COVID is happening and the world is on fire and they can kneel on George Floyd and kill him, like all of that, you just can't waste any more time. That's how it feels to me. Like, stripped of any pretense, vacant of any doubt that my purpose is to be a world healer by any means necessary. And people need to get out the way because I'm coming. That's what happened to me. And I think that's what's happened to my congregation. It's been amazing.
Now, from the moment of the fire, moving out to Eastman Kodak, to the fire that you experienced at Middle Church, you share experience. Your theology shifts over time.
Yeah.
Share with us the markers that you also express in your writings that shift your change and express, since the fire analogy, the fire shut up in your bones.
Ooh, okay. When I first met God, really, I was about 7. Close encounter. Had peeped at God, but close encounter is the first time I take communion. And my mom is sitting next to me on the pew, smelling like, I don't know, Windsong and Jergens lotion mixed up with a little Ultra Sheen note. And my dad is one of the deacons serving the stuff. When the bread comes by, it is that sweet Hawaiian bread that you now put dips in, friends. And I take my bread and Mom whispers to me, this bread means God will always love you. Otis, holy cow. I am like, what? The bread is so sweet. It's so good. And Mom attaches that to God will always love you. And I'm smitten. I'm ready to do God's will. The cup comes by and it's Welch's grape juice, because we don't do wine in the Presbyterian Church. It's Welch's grape juice, and I drink the juice, and she says, and this means God will never leave you. God will always love you. God will never leave you. This is the beginning of a love affair with a God called love. Absolutely. And I have a few years after that an experience with an adult who loves me, who molests me. Sorry, y'all. And it shakes me, right? It shakes up my trust in the adult world, period. But certainly, and I hope this isn't too much for our audience, but the kind of trauma that happens to people who are hurt in their sex, let's say, right? It's sexual trauma. So then the whole rest of the things that come into you, information that comes in around that, comes into a wounded kind of space. And so that trauma plus the girls don't theology is my whole, that's everything. Girls don't. You cannot. You don't have sex. You don't be sexy. You don't think about it. You don't talk about it. You don't self pleasure. You don't. Good girls don't. So suddenly this God who loves me doesn't like me, Otis. Can you feel that? I mean, God doesn't like, he doesn't like you. You menstruate and you're a little dirty. You can get pregnant, and you just like, it's a total funky, oppressive, damaging thing. And I really am convinced that my body didn't grow. I got some girls now, but they did not come till I was 33 or so years old. I think my body shut down, and I was not raped, Otis. I know so many women, boys, girls that just are raped, and horrible stories. No, that didn't happen to me, but I was betrayed and therefore couldn't trust my own self. I couldn't trust my own self. And I thought, and then this car accident went into this column of crazy sex stuff where I was 2 weeks ahead of my wedding. 2 weeks ahead of my wedding. And it was my birthday. And yes, I made love to the boy. And then a few months later, the car crashes. And Otis, I thought God was punishing me because I didn't wait. Now, come on. Come on, people. Do we want our kids really? I mean, I'm not saying I want to like sleep around the world. I'm saying to create a God image where the God is so intent on your virginity that you might have a car accident and God did it to you. That's a bit much. That's a lot. And that's where I was. And then that marriage broke up. And then I thought, all of that, the same stuff, sweetie. Like, you shouldn't have done it, and you weren't supposed to do it, and then you did do it, and then you had the car accident, and then you broke up, and then all of that was stuck in the column of this God who doesn't like me. Now, we got trans children and queer children jumping off bridges and medicating themselves because the God that they're given to love them stops liking them. Stops liking them. So I had to go to therapy about that, dude. I went to therapy about that because I felt like I was such a failure that I really didn't want to live. And as a psychologist, I'll say that often suicidal thoughts, suicidal desires are about killing the false self so your real self can live.
Wow.
Right? That's Donald Winnicott for show notes. That we cannot want, we can be so clear that we can no longer abide the falseness that we want to put it to death. And I'm so glad that I took the pills, and I'm so glad I went to the emergency room, and I'm so glad that I wasn't going to die. I was just going to have a bad stomach ache. But I'm so glad that I got to look at my life through the prism of false versus real, like to be real and to be good, not to be, you know what I mean? Fake and patina and underneath not being honest. It was the beginning of this Jacqui, was the end of that Jacqui. Of like, it cannot possibly be true that this God who made you doesn't like you. Of course God likes you. Of course God loves you. Of course you're going to make mistakes. Of course you might fall down, but you're going to get back up again. Of course you're sexy and beautiful and passionate. And that's why God made it. It's like, hey, hallelujah. Like, all right. This was the beginning of a theology of wellness and wholeness, a womanist theology of wholeness and wellness that has just served me so well in my life that I almost didn't get to have, Otis, because I had the wrong God.
My. Oh, Jackie, thank you for sharing that and for what you share in your book. I want to let everyone know also, you've blessed us today by sharing your story and your vulnerability. And for those who are listening, you may have someone in your life who is going through ideation of trying to, wow, that's power. I'll never forget that, trying to take out the false self.
Trying to take out the false self.
The National Organization of Suicide Prevention, we want you to know that that number is 800-273-8255. If you have someone in your life that is struggling, National Suicide Prevention, that number is 1-800-273-8255. Bless yourself, bless your family, and know there is no shame when you are struggling with the false self.
Yeah.
Jacqui,
Ask for
thank you
help, my
so
love.
much for sharing that. That was incredibly powerful. And I've shared with our community. My sisters struggle with mental health and eventual death, and that really helps me. Hearing you just the way you frame that, because I've struggled for years, trying to make sense of that because we were so very close, and
Yeah.
all that she taught me, and just we were just incredibly close, and she was just such a brilliant human being, and you just really blessed us. Now, there are those in the chat. We invite you. Monique Washington says, "Thank you for sharing."
Thank you, Monique.
And we want you to know the Q&A is open. If you would like to ask a question of Dr. Jacqui Lewis, who is an amazing leader in New York City, if you are going to be in New York, you want to visit Middle Church. It's an incredible community. And like I said, I can only describe it. It's the gumbo
It's a
community.
gumbo.
And they're always cooking something
That's right.
unique. And there are so many people who are artists in that community. I don't want to go down the list. I mean, it's almost a list of who's who. It's a little wink to Monica and to Michaela, who
Titus.
they absolutely adore, by the way. But I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to go there. But the Q&A is open right now. If you would like to ask a question, I believe that Brenda Dixon is on the line, and she has a question for you. And Brenda says, so how did you become able to come to peace with your own sexuality? What did you do to heal that part of yourself?
Well, Brenda, thank you for that question. It's really interesting. I had, other than my husband, saved myself and had only had one sexual relationship, and I did go to therapy, and it was really helpful to me to. I take myself to therapy, like to keep a tune-up. I'm happy to go. Oop, need a tune-up, but to really just kind of talk through how that molestation had frozen something inside me that didn't develop and didn't grow. So I gave her, I'm gonna call her, permission to grow up and to heal. And I tell a really funny story in this book about a sexual healing experience, where, I'm 20, I don't know, 8-ish or something like that. And I'm on a dinner date with some of my friends, and this black astronaut is sitting across from us, flirting with me, honey. Oh, he is really sending me the flirts, and I'm sending the flirts back. And I'm not, I am a pastor, and I'm not saying, everybody, this is your medicine, but it was my medicine to let myself go ahead and be with him. And I write about it like it was the thing I didn't know that I needed. I could have been 18, necking more, petting more. I could have been 21, having the first sex, but I had a delayed adolescence in a way. I had a delayed adolescence in a way that had me out of touch with my sexual self. And that moment with the astronaut was exactly what this human woman needed. So everybody's going to need to do what they need to do to get well. And I really am recommending strongly that when another resource to put in the chat is RAINN, RAINN, but the Rape and Incest Network. The numbers of people that are sexually molested, abused, raped, violated, mostly women and girls, but also boys and men, is outsized. We can't believe it. It's so much more common than anyone thinks. And that's a wonderful resource there. And if that has happened to anybody who's listening, or to anybody you didn't do it, it isn't your fault. You didn't do it, and it isn't your fault. You didn't do it, and it isn't your fault. And you deserve to be healed by it. And so find someone to talk to about it, and let the talk and cure begin. I am better. I am well around that issue because of the help I got, because of the relationship I had with the astronaut, and the loving relationships after that with good men, and my mom, who I had told the story to when I was young, but she and I had never really worked out some piece of it where, like, it isn't anybody's fault. Like, I got clear that it wasn't my fault. And then I was walking around with a little teeny tiny piece of me saying, why didn't mommy know? Aren't mommies supposed to know? And as she was dying 4.5 years ago, I got well around that. She didn't know what she didn't know what she didn't know. And she didn't know. And so we had this like beautiful forgiveness, juicy, show your real self, my full self to my mother, that I had been a little mad at her. I got to show her. And all of those truth tellings have made me well. The truth really does set us free.
That is powerful. Oh, thank you for sharing that. Brenda, thank you for
that question, Brenda.
Yeah, we appreciate Brenda. I always have to tease Brenda because Brenda is a part of our congregation, and Brenda is part of the Major Taylor Bicycle Club, which is a national group of Black bicyclists. We went to Ghana, and Brenda was riding a bike through a small village where women were not supposed to ride because they had not seen women ride before. But when she rode through, all of the girls and all the women start cheering. And so we joke at this point, there are women cyclists in some small village, and they're going to be in the next Olympics, all because of Brenda Dixon.
I love that. That's a great story. Go, Brenda. That's a great story.
Go, Brenda. We just appreciate you. You have a question here from Christopher Huff. What are the most important components of fierce love? And what would you say are the best ways to develop fierce love in life?
Thank you for Christopher. That's a great question. I do think the most important components are this ubuntu that Pastor and I have been talking about, which we could call empathy, but the strong sense that your destiny is tied up with the destiny of all of humanity. That's Tutu, that's Mandela, that's Ubuntu, that's Gandhi, that's King, that's Ella Baker, that's that's the civil rights movement. That's that we cannot be who we are until everyone is fully who they are. That we're not saved until everyone is saved. And by that saved, not just, I'm not talking about that with God. I'm talking about like saved as you have food on the table and you have clothing and you can move in the world and be safe and you don't get shot while driving, while black, we're not. So that really is the most important thing. And I do not believe we get there without really curating our self-love. And And that's not narcissism. Like narcissism is another thing, right? In fact, narcissism is the absence of self-love. It's narcissist is looking for love and doesn't have it. And that's what that is. But so this is what I really be practical. Every day you floss your teeth. Every day you brush your teeth. Every day you do a sit-up. Whatever it is, it's your routine. That same kind of daily practice of noticing, I'll say in this context, that you are a child of God, that you are created in the image of the holy. No kidding. Like we say that and we're like, no, awesomely and wonderfully made. No. Let's pause. Psalm 85, created a little less than angels. No, that's not what it says. It says created a little less than God. Elohim, God, a little less than God. You're created a little less than God. Who are we? Who are we? Created a little less than God, in the image of God, awesomely and wonderfully made in the image of God. Who are we not to love ourselves? That is almost blasphemous, not to love ourselves. So I want us to curate a spiritual discipline of self-love. That's so essential if we're going to turn our love on the world.
Oh, thank you for that. Christopher, thank you for that question. You reminded me, Jacqui, on our last book notes, we had a conversation with Dr. Earl Fisher, scholar and pastor in Memphis, and he was doing a piece on Albert Clegg and the Black Messiah and the Shrine of the Black Madonna. And he stated, which it blew me away, because I was like, yeah, I knew this, but I never made the connection, that in Hebrew, you really don't have the word for I, it's always we. And that also flows in just about so many African languages. We don't have there's not the individual word, because it's always connected to we. How we experience, my experience is connected to your experience. It's a we, it's a we, it's a we. Where in America, we have the word we, but we're usually meaning I most of the time when we share things.
That's right. I love that, Otis. And, it makes me think, I'm eating cough drops, y'all, so I don't cough on you. In the book, I talk about the Zulu expression, right? You and I know Sawubona is the way they greet each other and say, Sawubona. And I always thought it meant, I see you. Sawubona, I see you. And then Sankona, I exist. But actually, Sawubona means we see you. And who is we? What? Who? We. Me, my big mama, my Aunt Matilda, Uncle Bob, me, my ancestors, me, my people, all my people, and my deities in an African cosmology. When I say I see you, I mean we see you.
We see you.
Oh my God, right?
Yes.
It's so beautiful.
Now we have a question from Maria Jones. Are you raising or have you raised children? And if so, how do you share God differently after coming to peace with yourself?
Thank you so much, Maria, for that question. I do not have biological babies. A baby did not come out of my body. My eggs were very old when I met John. They had gray hair and they just refused. They just didn't do it. But I have a son that John brought to our relationship. And my son fell in love with a girl I fixed him up on a date with at the church. And so we have, I fixed Gabby and Joel. And so we have Gabrielle. I did. Gabrielle.
You hold that over them. You hold that. Like, I brought you all together.
Try not to do that. No, because that could make them really mad. But they came to a party together, and then they did their thing. Anyway, I have a son and a daughter, therefore, and 2 grandchildren, Ophelia and Octavius. But I'm raising a church of children, and I was a youth pastor before I was a senior minister. And I think this all has shaped the way I relate to little people. And what I mean by that is less demanding. I'm a hippie mama. I didn't think I would be, but watch this baby be who it is. I just have changed who is Ophelia? Ophelia is almost 4, and she is a whole world. She is a world. She's grown. She's a woman. She's a person. She's been a person since she was 6 months old. But she's a person who says, I need my privacy when she goes to the bathroom. She is a person who reaches out her hands to get a blessing from Nana on the TV when I'm doing the benediction. She is who she is. Our job as parents, grandparents, is to make sure she doesn't kill herself falling down the stairs and stuff, and to facilitate her being a person. She's a person. You can feel that she already understands pleasure and giggles and laugh. She is a theologically rich creature.
Mm.
Who's preaching today? She asked her mother. What? So our job, I think, is in that Khalil Gibran way. These children don't belong to us. They belong to God, and they belong to the world. And can we coach them into being who they need to be, as opposed to demanding? And especially, y'all, around this sex stuff and controlling our little Black children, I want to say, like the days of we got to control our children, like a little feral child is a good thing sometimes. Like, who are they? Can they show you who they are? Can they have some room to play, run, jump? Can they be seen and heard? Can we keep them in church so they learn how to do church? I'm not trying to make hard and fast rules. I'm saying, as a grandmother and as a person parenting children in a congregation, I'm a lot less should and a lot more show me.
Oh, I think that's really going to really liberate a lot of people.
Right.
And this next question, I'm going to add another. There's two questions actually in
Okay.
here. There's one from Carla, and then there's one that someone sent me to on my phone. And Carla Keener is asking, how do mothers, especially those of us of the boomer era, being honest, have these healing conversations with our daughters? And then this connects with another question that I received of how do we raise fierce, loving daughters?
Okay. Coughed up out for that. It takes courage. I'm a boomer. We boomers are daughters of mothers who are born in some kind of like old-timey time. Think about it. And their mothers, like my grandmother was born in 1909 or something like that. So we're talking about a gigantic revolution of values that have happened over the time. My mother had learned how to get what she needs from my dad by being a soft manipulator. Not a hard manipulator, but a soft manipulator. Over here, working it around, stepping around, and getting what you need. Hiding things you bought. Really? You're going to go shopping and hide your stuff in the closet? Hell no. We are in a different space. And our daughters, Gabby is she's 22 years younger than me. Our daughters are in different spaces. So I think it takes courage and vulnerability to begin an honest conversation. And maybe the book, I'm not trying to sell the book, maybe a little bit, but books.
I'm trying to sell the book. I'm trying to
buy the book. Buy the book. But the book is good because you read it and you talk about it. Or you watch a movie. You watch Daughters of Eve, like a text that isn't, remember when I was 16 and you didn't let me buy lipstick? That's one kind of text. But if you're talking about something outside of that, you can get to honesty faster. I really mean that. Art will drop you in. A good book, a movie, Lipstick Theology, Cole Porter's new book, This Here Flesh. Go back and watch The Color Purple. Put together something that will give you the chance to be honest with each other about that thing. And then that opens the door to be honest about these things. And let me say, women, my mother was dying. She was living with cancer for 8 years and she was dying. If I did not get to this with her, I wouldn't have finished becoming. Like, I didn't get grown until my mother gave me this gift of truth. So let us make it urgent to get to truth with our kids, because we're not guaranteed tomorrow. And what really do we have to lose? I want to say, make it a project. We are going to say the things to each other that will help us love each other better.
Thank you. Wow. I got a couple of notes that just came to me, and I want to give you just some comments. Some people have been really moved by this conversation. JD says, he's this wonderful comment. Who are we? Not to believe we are beautiful, gorgeous, fabulous, and great. We are a child of God. We shouldn't play small so others feel big.
That's
Go ahead,
right.
JD. Thank you
That's
so
right.
much.
That's right.
And a comment from somebody that I know, Monica Moss says,
Monica.
"Lewis, I fiercely love you. Thank you for your transparency and your powerful sharing. God bless you."
Thank you, Monica. That means a lot coming from you. Appreciate you.
This has been an absolutely extraordinary conversation, Dr. Lewis. Thank you for being with us today for Book Notes. And again, I've got to have a commercial right now. Hey, you need to purchase Fierce Love. Purchase it from Afterware Books. Afterware Books is owned by a sister, none other than Nzinga. It manages the bookstore at Trinity United Church of Christ, and they have a location in Oak Park. But if you order, use the coupon code Book Notes Fierce, and you will receive a discount on this powerful book. Let's put them up now. So everybody, put up your book. Put up your book there, Dr. Lewis. Got to do this. This powerful book, Fierce Love. Fierce Love. And we are going to end out today that Dr. Lewis is going to read a portion of her book. So, Dr. Lewis, whatever portion you want to read, we want to hear you read your favorite section or section you think that we should hear.
Thank you, Otis. And just like the Spirit does, that last question about mothers and daughters, this is chapter 7 that begins a little bit about mom. Live justly. Choose fairness and equality every day. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice. Justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands against love. Martin Luther King Jr. When I was a little girl, the only thing I loved more than flying through the air on the swing set was to watch my mom, no matter what she was doing. Sometimes that was from the vantage point of the fluffy pink toilet seat, peering up as she put on the sweet-smelling face powder that made her glow, or as she painted her lips and then kissed a tissue to blot off the excess. I loved watching her take pink rollers out of her hair. I'd cover my mouth and nose when she blasted her hair with spray meant to keep the curls in place. I watched her in the kitchen as she made biscuits, her hands powdered white, when she used the drippings from the beef shoulder roast to make gravy for the mashed potatoes, and as she fried chicken, always careful to drain it so it would stay crisp. I also watched my mother watch the world, and in so doing took cues on how to love the world around me. I watched her make soup for 6 neighbors, stretch the food on our dinner table to feed latchkey kids, and visit church members in the hospital. Daily, I was learning when to laugh and when to cry, when to mourn and when to dance, how to be a good person. I mourn my mother's loss, and I miss her face, a window to her feelings, a cue for mine. I miss her especially at this point in my life when, as I write, the world continues to battle COVID-19 and has lost such a disproportionate number of Black and brown people to it. As the physical church I love has been lost to fire, as violence against AAPI communities escalates in heartbreaking ways, making the call to fiercely love our neighbors even more urgent, as an angry mob beat its way into the nation's capital, violently protesting an election they truly believed had been stolen from their president, as the trial of the man who knelt on the neck of George Floyd, killing him, also puts our justice system on trial, and the nation waits to find out if Black grief and Black deaths matter. If she were here, I would tell her how damn tired I am of living in a country that treats Black grief as a threat and white rage as a sacrament. To wit, the contrast between the treatment of the Capitol insurrectionists and my own experience in the same building several years before is stark. White rage is why we have the Klan. In response to new freedoms conferred upon the Blacks after the Civil War, including the right to vote, it was white rage clothed in white sheets that terrorized Black people, hanging men, women, and children from trees, tearing off pieces of their flesh. White churchgoers watched and took pictures of some of the lynchings, holding their children on their shoulders for a better view. When Black grief shows up in the office and dares to speak up, demanding that the glass ceilings be shattered, the backlash from white rage interprets that grief as too angry. The Black employee isn't a team player. He can't be coached and therefore can't be promoted. Black grief isn't transient. It's prophetic.
Mm. Dr. Lewis, thank you so much for writing Fierce Love and being an embodiment of fierce love, and for leading the middle church community, for being a fellow for Auburn Seminary, and also, I've got to make this announcement, also being a part of the podcast, The Four.
The Four.
And Dr. Lewis, along with Lisa Sharon Harper and Michael Ray, we are part of The Four Podcast. This is a podcast that, in conjunction with Middle Church, Auburn Seminary, and Unashamed Media, we're trying to put something beautiful and also dangerous in the world at the same time. So please sign up and listen to The Four. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or even Google Play. Whatever the particular downloadable device you may have, you can listen to The Four, and we have some great conversations.
Great.
Thank you all for being with us for Book Notes. Again, pick up a copy of Fierce Love, Afterware Books. There you go. Pick up a copy of Afterware Books of Fierce Love. We want you to experience the fierce love and the power that comes from the heart of Dr. Lewis that is placed on the pages of this book. We thank you all for being with us today for Book Notes. Please be on the lookout in our e-news for our new discussions that will be coming forth. As I mentioned at the very beginning of this, we thought that this was just going to be a series, but there has been an overwhelming response. We're going to continue this experience, this show. We're going to transfer these videos into a podcast, and we're going to be talking with more authors so that you can be liberated, inspired, and at the same time, probably also a little bit mad too with some of the things that people will raise in some of these conversations. But ultimately, we hope to bring a little bit of beauty into your soul. So thank you for being with us for Book Notes on today.
Thank you, Otis. I'm so glad to be with you. Storm is delighted.
That's right. Storm. Our ex names, Bishop and Storm.
Thank you all. God bless you. Thank you for coming.